Another thorny topic that has taken a big share of headline news in Lebanon and that affect all Lebanese regardless of their age, religion, political affiliation, it is the environment and the waste garbage management and how to take advantage of it by transforming it into energy. Our next panel is going to be, we are honored to have Minister of Environment, Mr. Fadi Jaisati, who is trying to push for a drastic change in the waste management sector. You are welcome to on the stage, معالي الوزير, تفضل. Of course. Leon. We will be joined by other experts on this panel that they will be introduced by Mr. Shahabian. Mr. Leon Shahabian is principal at Global Insights Group and senior associate at the International Security Program at the Center for Strategic International Studies. تفضل Mr. Shahabian.
Thank you, Habibi Bashir. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the Minister of Environment of the Republic of Lebanon. He has the easiest job in Beirut. Allow me to enumerate kassarat. For those of you who don't speak Arabic, that's not a curse word. He also owns pollution, trash, electricity. His official budget is $8 million. $2 million of that is for a specific program in Litani. So, including salaries, $6 million. You do the math as to how much that is per citizen or refugee. So, why am I telling you all of this? He will take your checks as you're leaving. He loves credit, he prefers cash. Okay, all right, so there's two kinds of panels. There's the kinds where you go, you complain, and you say the government should do this. This is not that kind of panel. Day two, last panel, last day, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna talk about something that affects every single one of you, trash. There's a lot of problems. He's the right guy, he's in the right job, he doesn't have enough, he can help, but we have experts around him. Okay. We're gonna start with Mr. Fuad. 30 years of experience. I'm not gonna give you his last name. I'm not gonna tell you that he's an engineer, because he is. I'm not gonna tell you all the great work that he's done, because we don't have that kind of time. Ladies have to go and get ready for the dinner, and I'm not gonna take any of that time away. Speaking of ladies, we have Dr. Maria. Again, no last name, no affiliation. She could be with the World Bank. She has a lot of experience in Africa, North Africa. And she's going to talk about how what happens in, let's say, Morocco could be a best practice for Lebanon. All right, speaking of best practices, we're going to go to Europe next. This young man did an amazing master's capstone project for Georgetown University in the Netherlands, and then he went to Beirut and he looked at the trash. He washed his hands, he's here with us, he's gonna talk about that. Next to him, Mr. Ilyas Haj, he is investing. Maybe his name is Haj. He's from Canada, there are cousins, please. He's investing in Lebanon, he's investing in making a difference. Why? He's gonna tell us. It may deal with his village. I've taken enough time. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is, welcome, thank you for taking the time. It's a beautiful Saturday evening. Football is on, the weather outside is beautiful, but we're gonna talk trash because we care about this little country that means so much to every single one of us. Having said that, allow me to, all right. The tone setter is Mr. Arbid. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody can hear me fine. So I just want to talk in general about my experience with waste management. Really, I get this question a lot, like what's the latest technology? What should we do in Lebanon? We want to just leapfrog everybody. Let's just get to the bottom line. What is the latest technology? Got news, there is no latest technology. So really it's about creating a system, an integrated system. It's a puzzle. We really have to look at it as a puzzle. You create an integrated system to manage the waste, and there is no magic or silver bullet for that matter. There's nothing to it that's not very logical, right? So the integrated solid waste management system starts with having a sanitary landfill. A sanitary landfill is the cornerstone of this system, and you build on it. And the idea is to build a landfill and maybe not have to build another one until they find that magic bullet or that silver bullet. So you take a landfill and you maximize its life by diverting as much of the waste to other possible technologies. There's talk about, I did read the government's plan, and there's talk about incineration, waste to energy, recycling, possibly composting, other things.
clinical studies بلبنان.
All great. I think that's an interference in the sound. Anyway, it's all fine and good. I think it's fine. You look at each technology, you do a cost-benefit analysis, and you apply it if it makes sense. A country like Lebanon is heavily indebted. I wouldn't think that some technologies work, but maybe they do. Incineration is one of them. You should look at it. It should be part of the menu of things you look at in a cost-benefit analysis to layer on top of the base, which is the landfill. One thing that has to be understood in Lebanon is that people think that the waste has to be dealt with somehow in a special way. Well, it's everybody's waste, so everybody owns it. It comes out of everybody's home. You're responsible for it. So whether the landfill ends up in your town, maybe some incentives can be made for you to accept that. But the idea is it's not somebody else's stuff, and their stuff stinks just the same as your stuff would. So it's really an important factor to kind of get the psychology of it right. But this NIMBY mentality actually happens everywhere in the world. So you think that you can put a landfill in Fairfax County or in Maryland somewhere or in DC? You're wrong. You can't do it because people will have the same reaction that Lebanese people have to putting a landfill in their backyard. It's not an issue with Lebanese particular psyche. It's an issue with everybody's psyche. They think of it negatively, and there are some negative effects. But I have landfills that I consult on here in the United States. Within 200, 300 feet, you have $1 million house. So this is not exactly a mystery that we have to wrap our brain around. The idea is this is a problem. It's everybody's problem. We have to deal with it in a mature way. And it does require one thing that I think we may be missing more in Lebanon and other places. It requires trust. The government has to have the trust of the people that we're doing the right thing. And how do you acquire that trust? Obviously, past experiences in this case don't help. So you got to acquire that trust by creating some sort of an independent body that would basically monitor these facilities. If you're going to build a landfill, here we spend a lot of time actually having a third party oversee the construction process to make sure the liners are put in properly, the monitoring systems are put in properly. And then every quarter you got to monitor, you submit those to the state, and those are public. So creating an independent body to actually help the ministry and the government and the people of Lebanon understand that this is a transparent process that requires a lot of monitoring, and that data can be made public so people can actually gain trust in what's being put in place. Once that happens, I think maybe that puts some people at ease. It won't cure the problem in terms of NIMBY mentality. I think that's the idea I wanted to convey, and I'm done.
Thank you for that, Mr. Arbid. Tomorrow's his birthday, and he's missing a wedding now, so help him.
It's all right. I'm good. They delayed the wedding.
All right. One small clarification. He used a technical term called NIMBY that's not in my backyard. The translation would be not near my balcony. and this is not a Lebanese specific issue, right? It's global. We're all human beings. We have a nose everywhere, some bigger than others. With that, we're going to go to the investor. This guy has a story. He's probably not going to tell it, so I will ask him to tell it. خبرنا عن الضيعة عندكم.
So I come from a village up in the mountain in Mount Lebanon called Antura. And Ain Tura means fountain. And Ain Tura was built around in the early years around the fountain that comes through, burst out of the mountain, which is most of the villages in Lebanon are built around fountains. And over the years and lately since 2015, we've seen a lot of trucks throwing their dumps on top of these fountains. The water with the rain brings the garbage down to that fountain where my ancestors used to drink it. So that touched me actually, it angered me. That made me a little bit upset. And beside that, also being in the renewable energy, decided to pursue a project in Lebanon, and a waste to energy project. So in 2017, with the assistance of the Canadian Embassy in Lebanon, we started our prospecting for waste to energy project in Lebanon. We met with the embassy, with the Ministry of Environment, the previous one, the Ministry of Energy, and the municipality of Beirut. And also we signed a letter of interest to obtain the tender from the city of Beirut, the municipality of Beirut, to build and operate a waste to energy plant in the vicinity of the city and to produce 48 megawatts of electricity by burning the waste in an incinerator. However, after thorough review, and we decided not to bid on the tender. So we continued looking at other solutions in the waste to energy. So we mobilized our legal counsel, Canadian legal counsel, a couple of engineers to do road and site surveys at the radius of 80 kilometers from the city of Beirut, which is where the majority of Lebanese live, which is Beirut, its suburbs, and Mount Lebanon. In 2018, in August last year, to solidify our team, we signed a partnership with a Quebec-based company that is operating a waste-to-energy plant, and that recuperates about 1.5 million tons of waste, municipal waste and industrial waste, in 60 different municipalities, the surface of about 60% of Lebanon. And we did that for two reasons. One was to obtain the operational guidelines, the know-how on the landfill, on the gas, so methane to biogas plant that they have since 2003, and also on their cogeneration plant where they take the methane, treat it, and then burn it and produce energy. So we did that, but also the most important thing, we did that because we have in Canada financial institutions, but also we have the Canadian Commercial Corporation, which is a crown corporation that can help us finance this project. So our investment was, compared to the capital expense of this whole thing, is about $1.5 million to go through the pre-feasibility study and the feasibility, and then produce a feasibility study that is bankable and that we can get the financing to build a waste-to-energy project in Lebanon, because that's always the problem, is the funding. To put it a little bit in a prospect, waste-to-energy, I am in no means an expert like my colleague here. The city of the city of London was built on a landfill, or part of the downtown city of London was built on a landfill. Waterfront of Lower Manhattan was built on a landfill. Ancient Jerusalem was built on a landfill, waste landfill, garbage. In those days, the waste was biodegradable. So with time, it goes away. In today's world, the waste is non-recyclable or not biodegradable. So, example, the non-recyclable plastic that we all face in any country. So to resolve this problem, we invested in a demonstrator plant, a pyrolysis demonstrator plant in Thetford Mines, Quebec. It's a small investment with the help of some funds from the Quebec government. And we imported it, Chinese technology, and upgraded it to be able to input plastic, non-recyclable plastic, into this reactor and produce diesel, mazout. And today we're going through that process, and next year, 2020, we hope to commission the first reactor, and it should produce about 1.3 million liters of diesel by inputting 3,000 tons of non-recyclable plastic. Plastic is a petroleum product. We're bringing it back to its original. And we intend to export this technology, so this technology is scalable and modular, can be shipped, and we intend to export it and include it in the project in Lebanon. So I'll make it quick. Sorry, I just had some notes and pretty much. So I'd like to share with you a couple of facts or issues that we faced in Lebanon. So Lebanon produces about 7,000 tons per day, or 2.6 million tons per year of municipal waste, industrial and municipal. And it grows at about 1.6% per year. And adding on that is about 300,000 tons, give and take, statistics is not sure, of waste coming from the refugees. So altogether, is a lot of waste per capita, a lot of garbage. We are a consumer country. This waste mostly is in Mount Lebanon and Beirut, its suburbs, where the majority of the people live. So we feel that building an incinerator or developing a landfill, mazbale, in this region is going to face tremendous challenges, and the highest chance of failure will happen. Another challenge that we faced is the regulatory framework. So we met with the ministries and about 6-7 people inside. And they always told us, you got to go see the municipalities. And what we wanted to bring a project that is financeable, so the volume has to be large. And we can't sit around with 100 municipalities or group municipalities trying to make individual contracts with them. This has to be a government solution that asks the municipalities to go through the recuperation and the transformation and the delivery of the wastes. So that was a point that we wanted to address, and we will address with the ministries. To conclude, just quickly to conclude, we are at the pre-feasibility phase. We will be going to the feasibility phase and then meet with the minister. It's my pleasure to meet you today. The solution that we came up with in the project is to build, own, and operate a landfill of about 1.5 million tons. That includes recycling. The second phase is to build own and operate the plastic to diesel plant within this landfill. And the third phase is to build, own, and operate the plant for taking the methane and producing biogas to be able to go to the fourth phase, which is building a plant, an electrical plant, a cogeneration plant that takes this biogas and produces 10 megawatt to 15 megawatt of electricity to be able to supply about 10,000 homes. This is an
Thank you, Elias, for that intervention. We're going to go to Dr. Maria and a perspective from North Africa, particularly Morocco, from the World Bank. Now, she's not talking on behalf of the World Bank. She's talking on her behalf and on behalf of every daughter of Lebanon.
Thank you. Hello, hello. Oh, no. Mine is not. Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. So my name is Maria Saraf. I've been working for 20 years at the World Bank. My background is in environmental economics. I'm right now in charge of the Environment Department for West Africa. Before I start, I just wanted to thank the organizer for putting together this conference. It's really outstanding work, and especially the Lebanese embassy in Washington. Bravo for all your work. It's really great. So I had not worked in Lebanon directly on waste, but I had a chance to work on Morocco for 8 years. And we really, when I say we, it's the World Bank and the government of Morocco, reformed the entire sector. And if Morocco can do it, Lebanon can do it. As Leon said at the beginning, we want to be positive. We're not going to be nagging. We want to bring, positive. And there are, Minister Fadi, you can reform the sector. It will take time, but it's doable. There are 3 lessons, and I'll start by these. These are the 3 elements of success that let us succeed in Morocco. First, you need a very strong political commitment. We worked with the Ministry of Environment, but that was not sufficient. We worked with the Minister of Interior, and we worked with the Minister of Finance. All 3 were aligned. So we had a very strong political commitment to move the agenda forward, because it is not an easy agenda. The second thing is that it's a long-term commitment. You do not change the waste sector in a year, nor in 2 years. In Morocco, they enacted the first integrated solid waste law in 2006. Then in 2008, they put together a 15-year roadmap to modernize the waste management sector. And we're now towards the end of these 15 years, and you can really see the result, and the results are amazing. So that is an important message. I know the public in Lebanon is very eager, and they're tired, and they want solution, and they want to see it, but we're starting now. The roadmap was just approved for Lebanon. It's going to take another 5 and 10 years to be completely fixed. Now, and the third element of success is that to tackle, and as Fouad was saying, you cannot tackle only one part. You cannot only look at street cleaning or landfilling, right? You have to look at it from all angles. And I'll give you just a few part of it, otherwise I can speak here for 2 weeks explaining the whole reform of the sector. So I'll talk to you about 4 key reforms that we looked at. First of all is governance, and that's very important for Lebanon. In Morocco, there was a lot of mistrust with the government on all the bidding process and how things were done. We worked with the municipality, and today, every contract between the municipality and a private operator is published on the Ministry of Interior website. Simple. The contract is there, the name of the contractor, the amount of money. Bring transparency to the sector. Morocco is 40 times the size of Lebanon, so they have environmental observatory a little bit everywhere in the territory. We've worked with them to include, as part of the environment observatory, also indicators on waste management. How much waste is produced, what's the composition of the waste, etc. So just to also monitor how all solid waste data. And finally, on the governance side, on the transparency, we introduced something very interesting called Citizen Report Card. It's like here, when you have a service and they ask you for a survey. We did that with one municipality and asked them to give feedback on how they saw waste collection, waste treating, waste cleaning was going on. So all this feedback that you get from citizen is really important. It feeds into improving your contract, and it gives confidence to the citizen. The second reform we looked at is financial reform. Now, we're not gonna, waste is a municipal service. It's gonna be privately organized. It's not gonna be privately paid fully. But what we realized there, for example, over time, private contractors were not bidding anymore to get any contract with the government. When we dug into that problem, we realized that the government was in debt to private operators. So over time, and the private operator, we spoke to them, they said, we're not going to sue the government, we're just going to not bid anymore. So there was a lot of mistrust there. We worked hard with them, and we introduced in the contract between municipality and private operator a clause on arbitration. So to give the confidence to the private sector to be able, if there is an issue and if there is a delay in payment, yes, to take the municipality to court and demand for that payment. And as a result, 70% of the debt that was owed was reduced to 30% today. So again, working at the root of the problem has helped a lot. Another part with the third angle of reform was on the environment, and for that the Ministry of Environment is really strong. They have very competent people. We trained, for example, 75 in Morocco. They have 75 inspectors who are accredited in landfill supervision. So that the one, I mean, you may not have the resource for all of that, but at least this is something to look, so these people can actually monitor landfill construction and operation. And the last side we looked at is the recycling. Morocco was the first country to introduce a tax on plastic. We're talking about plastic today in the ocean and everything. 10 years ago, Morocco introduced a tax on plastic. And the money from this tax was transferred to an environmental fund that is now funding 18 sorting and recycling facilities throughout the country. So this is an example of what we've done. The result in terms of picking up waste collection, street cleaning, landfilling, closing old dump sites have been really fantastic. Again, it did not happen overnight. It's happened over the past 10 years, and they're still going on. So, thank you.
All right, and now a perspective from the field, from Lebanon, but also from the Netherlands. We're going to turn to Mr. Hadi, who just left Washington, D.C. for New York, the sacrifices we all make.
Thank you. So I think I was asked to come today to provide an outside perspective, a little bit of a general business perspective, maybe a bird's eye view. So my MBA capstone project at Georgetown involved researching and analyzing business opportunities within Lebanon's waste management sector. And what we found when we first started looking into it is that waste management is very unique. It's at the intersection of government, environmentalism, and business. So the microeconomics says that there should be many players, but a lot of times there aren't. And because of that, things can get very difficult. It can be hard for change to take place. It can be hard for information to become disseminated into a population. So anyway, in our project, we looked at the Netherlands. We chose it as a model country. And not because we thought there was a silver bullet solution for Lebanon within that country, but because the success in that country started decades and decades ago with policy changes and with social initiatives that took hold and allowed the country to transform over time. These policy initiatives made business viable. Businesses that operated within environmental law were rewarded. Those that did not were punished. Social initiatives ranged from early childhood education and environmental stewardship to ways for people to think a little bit more about what happened to their trash after it left their home. So our findings, what we found was it wasn't necessarily about the technology that was in the country at the time, and it wasn't necessarily about the policy. These are all incredibly important, and my friends here on stage, they represent almost all those aspects within waste management. The greatest market force that we found in waste management, however, was public sentiment, not public demand, because everybody wants a good solution for waste management in Lebanon, everybody. But it's the trust, it's the relationship between the public and the businesses, between public and the government, between the government and the businesses. When these work in unison, it opens the door for entrepreneurship, it opens the door for businesses to enter the market, to be successful, for people to become involved in waste management, because waste management cannot be a venture between government and a few businesses. It needs to be heralded by everybody. It needs to be carried by businesses, even if it's as simple as putting something on the back of a consumer packaged good that says, dispose of responsibly, something like that. When people see that stuff, when they grow up with it, when the younger generations are taught by their school teachers and the people who teach them how to read and write and do math that they need to take care of their trash and dispose of things a certain way. When they grow up, they are more easily, they look into solutions more openly. When you don't grow up with that kind of information and education, you become an adult and all of a sudden you're faced with a crisis, and in one hand you have incinerators, waste of energy, what should we do? Nobody trusts, nobody knows what to do. It's very difficult to make a decision. So I think that together, this is I think Lebanon is at the cusp of making the same decisions that the Netherlands made years ago. And I hope that the public sentiment can be, kept at the forefront, because make no mistake, no matter how successful a technology is, no matter how much people want things to change, if the public isn't aligned behind a solution, it won't really take hold. So that's it. Thank you.
All right. Last but not least, a sitting minister. I want you to take 2 seconds to think about that. Guy's jet lag, he's here. The foreign minister is here. This is not small, this is huge. We thank you. It's Saturday, Ambassador Isa is here, the Consul General from New York is here. This is good. Now, we were gonna do a discussion, we're not gonna do that. We don't want it to be about experts talking to experts and a clown. Instead, we're going to hear from the minister, and then we'll take a question or two until Wael stops us. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Minister Fadi Shraisati.
Thank you, Leo, and thank you for all the speakers. Well, I realize it's not a technical conference about solid waste. So I was trying to figure out what a diversified Lebanese diaspora would be interested in hearing from a Minister of Environment. And I thought of 2 questions. One, maybe you want to know if we have a plan, if we have a solution soon, if there is hope. And the second thing, if there is any opportunity in Lebanon in solid waste. So I will start by number 2, if there is any opportunity. And I would say yes, there is a lot of opportunities. In a recent report prepared by the World Bank, they mentioned 5,000 jobs that can be created directly out of the green economy. So if Lebanon is embarking now in solutions for its waste crisis and other environmental challenges, this is directly 5,000 jobs that are created. So we are definitely reaching out to all the experts here, Fuad, yes, everybody, to help us, to help Lebanon. We can get French, German, Danish experts, and they're coming a lot, coming through the EU, World Bank, everybody. But obviously the priority should be to Lebanese diaspora experts to bring you back home and to use your experience and talents. So there is... So you'll be hearing a lot now about the circular economy, about the green economy in Lebanon. And this is something we're investing a lot in. And this will create a lot of jobs for people seeking jobs as consultants or employees. And there is also investment opportunities for those of you who are not in solid waste, but are finance guys or investors, bankers, whatever, people that want to invest back in Lebanon. So this is a great opportunity because we did so bad over the last 50 years that we can only do better in the future. So there is a lot of opportunities. We need everything. Any solution related to waste is needed now in Lebanon, from landfilling, waste to energy, sorting plants, everything. So it is a good market in Lebanon. And we will eventually have financing through SADR. We have $1.4 billion that are dedicated to solid waste. So this is also good financing, concessional financing to solid waste. The second the first question was if there is a plan and if there is hope. And this is something I realized because I had the chance to come to Washington twice in the last 4 months. And I met a lot of Lebanese, obviously, during the receptions we had. And they all asked the same question. Are you going to solve the waste crisis? We want to go back home. We want to go for summer. So probably this is unanimous. You all are betting a lot on my success to go back home, at least for summer, which makes it a big responsibility. And I can tell you, yes, it's a very tough mission, but it's not impossible at all. We can succeed. Not me, we. So yes, I definitely believe we can do it. We have to go through a transition phase. And as Maria said, people should not expect miracles from me overnight. But at least I have a plan. It was submitted to the Council of Ministers. The cabinet approved my plan. And now we are starting the implementation phase. But don't expect miracles and don't lose your patience. It's a long-term thing. It took 10 years in Morocco. It shouldn't take much less in Lebanon with all the political challenges we have. Because unfortunately, we never have one decision maker in Lebanon. You know the politics in Lebanon, the impossible mosaic we have. So we have to live with this. The main challenges would be transparency and trust. And this is number one. And I have inherited 40 years of bad governance in Lebanon. And this will take time to regain trust and credibility. And we're trying to do things in a very transparent way. And I think this is the first condition. Maria mentioned a lot of good ideas. So the more transparent we are in our tenders, the more transparent we are in announcing the figures, who wins, how, public tenders, opening the envelopes in front of the media. We shouldn't hide information from people. Civil society should get involved in whatever we're doing. We have to rebuild the trust, and it's a very tough mission because you quickly realize in Lebanon it's not about the technology when it comes to waste, and I think we all share the same point of view. It's about the trust. And this is really tough because we had a recent crisis in the north of Lebanon, and every time we were suggesting a solution, we were faced by mistrust, and people were going in the streets. Adding to the NIMBY syndrome that is worldwide, we have a very big mistrust between the government and the people in Lebanon. And this is very tough for any solution that we're suggesting. So point number one is transparency. And I think in the roadmap and the strategy we presented, we did a lot of improvement in the way we're dealing with this sector. So first, we divided the chain of services between the collection company, between the treatment company, and between the landfilling company. So for the first time in Lebanon, we have 3 different providers, service providers. Now, we have the same guy that does all the collection, all the treatment, and all the landfilling, but we added, because we're very creative in Lebanon, building the landfills. And then we are very surprised why people accuse us of being corrupt. The system is corrupt, the way it was dealt with. So the good news, this has changed, and we're separating. So this is the first point. The second one, we will have to go through international supervision and international help. Unfortunately, I have to say this, but we need to rebuild trust. And the way to do it, because people do not trust us, and maybe do not trust me, we will have to get international supervision and control by international auditors. And this will help in the transition phase only by the time we do the capacity building that is needed and we regain the trust. So this is important. The second thing, we have decentralization in Lebanon when it comes to waste. And this is important because all centralized solutions led to corruption. And they proved to be wrong solutions. So we tried centralization. It's the time now to try decentralization. And this will help a lot. It will create more transparency and more accountability because it's a smaller circle and it's a smaller amount of money. And because municipalities and federations of municipalities will do the control and will do the tendering. And they are closer to their people than a central government. And they can be less corrupt sometimes, and they are elected by the people, so they have all the legitimacy and credibility. Decentralization will lead to privatization, and this is also very important. And this is why I said before that this will create a lot of opportunities for you and for all the diaspora to come and invest in Lebanon in waste and environment. Because we are totally against having the government run any waste solution. It should be the private sector. And the most successful over the years was the private sector in Lebanon. We always screwed publicly, but succeeded privately and individually. So let's give the chance to the private sector either to invest and to come as BOT projects, and this is open now for everybody, or financed by the projects, but the private sector, by SAID or the others, World Bank, but run by the private sector. So this is something very important. I will conclude by saying that the most important thing that needs to happen now is a behavioral change. If we Lebanese people do not decide to change our bad habits that we had over the years from sorting at home, and this is something that was voted by decree 3 weeks ago, finally. So this, to succeed, people have to change. It's not about the government, it's not about me. It's about the Lebanese people deciding to change their habits because it's good for us, good for the environment, good for our pockets. We're saving a lot of money by recycling all this waste. Landfills will live more. We're doing a lot of campaigns regarding littering, and it's a very bad habit. And people should not be surprised and put the blame on the guy or the government that did not clean the streets. The blame should be on the guys that were throwing their waste on the streets. And this is a bad habit. So I think if we have to succeed, we all Lebanese people should start and trigger the change. And then the government will do, and we are assuming all the responsibility in terms of a legal framework and pushing private investors to come and attracting more people like you to come to Lebanon. Thank you very much.
All right, we don't have a lot of time for questions, but we have some time. Who has a question? Yes, sir, in the back with the white sheet of paper.
The triangulation of solutioning should be based on geopolitical, as you touched on, socioeconomics, and demographics. What I meant by that, before I phrase it into a question, would you have the political support to turn the issue into national security? Because that's exactly what it is. National security in Lebanon will become driven by the diseases that are being caused by such critical mass, by the exposure that really should be contained. So once it turns into a national security matter, then the contractual agreements, and if we get towards regulations, as we mentioned before, correct? We get into the policy, we get into accountability that really should drive, if someone or some contractor flooding the streets.
I think we got the question, right?
That's exactly. So I'll wrap it up in 10 seconds.
Please, because
so the question would
he
be
has a wedding to get to.
Yes, sir. So the question would be the accountability. Would you have the drive and the support of the government as a cabinet to give you that power of accountability to anyone who would cause such national security issue? Thank you.
Okay, if I understood well, the first question was, do I have the political support? Right? Okay, so I have the political support of my president, he's here. So, but we do not have the majority because we keep on hearing that, well, you have a big group, a number of ministers and a big group at the parliament. But this is not enough. This is not 51%. Okay, so we are not the sole decision makers. And this is Lebanon. This is a mosaic. So you have so many shareholders. We have all to decide about every solution. So political support, no, I wouldn't say I have a full political support. You have to understand that waste in Lebanon is almost $350 million a year. That is run by 2 companies, most of it. So you are facing a big cartel. And this is why it will be very hard to break this system that has been there for 25 years. It was called Suclean for 25 years. Now they changed the names, but it's still the same system, the same establishment. And we are going to break this establishment. It's very hard. So I don't think it's about the political support. We have to win the people's support. Maybe this is more important. Plus, we have all the will to fight till the end. Shall we succeed or not? I don't know. We have to do our job. And if people will give us their trust, we have to be able to succeed. Because I think everybody is fed up with all the things we were doing before. And there is a time where you say enough is enough. I think we reached the time. The whole system is in a bad shape. Our economy is in a very bad shape. So if we don't do things now, I'm afraid it will be too late. It's the last shot we have.
All right, one last, very short and question, if anyone. Yes, sir.
Hi everyone. I think in Lebanon, the problem is we are consuming our country, and it's really dangerous. The sea is, like, consuming the sea is, I think, the worst. That's where everything starts. We saw since ever, like, those centers at our shore to clean the sewage. And I think, like, they never really functioned. Is there any hope for them to, like, processing the sewage soon?
Yes, there is a plan. We have sewage treatment plants, part of SADR. Some of them were awarded before. It will take probably 2 to 3 years to have all those plants and to avoid having all our sewage going directly to the sea. It's a crime, definitely it's a crime. But first you have to know that it's the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources that handles this, not the Ministry of Environment. But since we're colleagues, I can answer that we have a plan, yes, and we're betting a lot on SADR support to finance the remaining ones. Part of them have their financing, but unfortunately it will take a few more years to say that we are behaving well in terms of the Mediterranean Sea.
That brings to an end this panel. We're up against the closing ceremony. All of these experts will be in the room behind after the closing. Should you have any questions, please join me in giving a big hand to everyone.